Praise Lord, my fellow brothers and sisters, saints of the Most High God. This is Elder Adrian Heyman, bringing to you another in a series of lessons as we journey through Genesis. Right now, we're in Genesis chapter number 7, whereas the Lord had already told Noah that there was going to be a flood that was going to wipe away all of mankind. And that was why he commissioned Noah to build the ark. Now, again, just to make sure that we recognize this, the Bible is not a scientific book, but where it does say something, I believe it to be true. I believe there was a flood. I believe that essentially Noah had to go through that flood. Now, whether that's scientific, I leave it up to science. But it does seem pretty interesting, even though the time frame is not quite there, but that there was actually a flood that actually covered just about the entire earth in the annals of scientific earth time. Just wanted to drop that nugget by you. But let's go ahead with Genesis chapter number 7, verse number 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Now, that can be taken one of two ways. Number one, it shows that Noah was a very outstanding person. Because regardless of whether he was always successful, God sees the heart, and he had always tried to walk righteously before God. And because of that, he was able to save not only himself, but his sons and all of their wives. Sometimes it's good to have someone that's righteous in your family. It's best when it's you. But if it's some you know of your grandmother, grandfather, mother or father, someone prayed for you. Someone lived an outstanding life before God. And here you are now because of those prayers, because the Lord knows how to answer prayer. The other thing is, Noah, I want you to think about this. Noah and his sons and all their wives, which 4, of course, 1 for each son, 1 for Noah, makes it 8 souls. They were the only ones who ended up coming into the ark. And it was maybe Noah at the beginning thought, well, Lord, isn't that kind of a small ark for the amount of people that I'm sure would have listened to me as I preached to them? But God knows exactly who's supposed to come. It's not that God forbid them to come, but they made their choice. And therein lies the specter of free choice, even when God already knows what's going to happen. It's not that God is forbidding you, but that essentially you made your choice and God already knew you were going to make your choice. That doesn't make God capricious. It doesn't make God evil. It means you have to stand up for your responsibility and stop pushing the responsibility of someone else. You can live right. What's your excuse? These are things that we have to really understand about God. Instead of blaming him for your mistakes, you make the mistakes. So, whatever the reason God had for making you, you cannot push it back on God. Say, well, you made me. That's the same thing Adam said. The woman that you gave me, That was an excuse by Adam. As you see, it had practically no, it was practically no excuse whatsoever. It was a bad one. But anyway, in this case, Noah was invited into the ark. Then the Lord gave Noah a few more instructions. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. So you see that there was already a separation. It wasn't just two of every species. It was two of every unclean animal. But there were 7 of the ones who were clean. Mainly because those were the ones that you had to deal with the herds, the sheep, the cattle, the goats. To have 2 would take a bit longer period of time for them to multiply. But the Lord knew what man needed, and he knew he needed. He couldn't turn back into a hunter because it was too few animals to hunt. So they needed something to eat in the meantime. See, God always knows what's the issue. Because if God told man to hunt the animals right after they got off the ark, you would see that every single animal, or most animals, would become extinct quite quickly. But he gave 7s. So they had 7 cattle, 7 sheep, 7 whatever that they had. So they had enough food and enough for clothing between those animals and Noah and his 3 sons and their wives, without them having to go out and hunt deer and others to extinction. As I said, God knows more than we think he knows. That was actually a very, very prudent move by God to bring them in 7s for the clean animals, the one that they have domesticated. And the ones they haven't domesticated, those are the ones that are go by 2s. Verse number 3, of fowls also of the air by 7s, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Now, again, does that mean all of the fowls of the air? Because there are some, of course, that practically live on the ocean. Don't know. Those that live on the ocean, sure they have to fight through storms and everything else. Maybe they also were on the ark. But here is the key. Whether you believe the ark story or whether you don't, whether you believe the measurements were about right or whether they were not right, the idea was that provisions were made to keep living species alive and not for them to become extinct, including mankind. Because remember, this was man's sin. But you see how the sins of man end up destroying the world around him. The animals, the birds, they all had to pay a price, heavy price, for man's sins, even though they were perfectly innocent of the whole thing. Kind of seeing what we're doing right now. We're polluting ourselves. We hunt animals to extinction. It wasn't the animals' fault. It was ours. And it still is our fault. We have to learn how to live with living creatures. We don't tend to do that. We consider ourselves first and foremost and always. But we have to also make sure that we take care of what God has given to us. Not just ourselves, not just our domesticated beasts of burden, but every other piece of life upon this earth. So in something to think about. Fourth verse. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth. Now he begins to become more specific. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth. 40 days and 40 nights. Now in Southern California, someone wrote a song, "It Never Rains in Southern California." Of course it does, but I get the point. It doesn't rain that much. But the idea here is that if it rains for, let's say, 3 days, 4 days, 3 or 4 days, we're starting to panic. We don't know if the mountains are going to melt because the slopes can't take it. We get mudslides, we get rock slides, we get landslides. This recent rain that we had last year and the early part of this year, the end of last year, early part of this year, and we were about, I'm sure we were about to call it an emergency. We would have to try to go for emergency funds because of all of the damage caused by just 3 or 4 days of rain. And there are places where it rains, of course, much more than that. So the 40 days and 40 nights of rain, you have to understand 2 things. Number one, where Israel lived during that time, remember, the Lord was speaking to Moses, who then brought these books to the people. And as Moses wrote these books, he had to put it in their perspective. They probably have never even seen it rain a full 2 days straight. Maybe that. Remember, this is not a lush portion of the world. It's rather pretty dry. So for it to rain 2 or 3 days would have been something monumental. 40 days is beyond their comprehension. And we know in the more tropical places of this world, it can rain every day for 2-3 months. But it's because the area is used to it. They're lush in vegetation. So the roots hold the soil there, and there's not as much danger of landslides or things that particular nature. But it also depends upon if it's raining extremely hard every single minute of every single hour of every single day. And if it rains like a torrent, like an inch an hour or more than that, there are hurricanes that dump more, that can dump more rain in a matter of hours. The whole region can get in a year. I remember I didn't hear about the amount of rain that was dumped upon North Carolina with Hurricane Helene. I remember when another hurricane had hit the Texas area, and it was like 20 to 40 inches of rain fell in a matter of a day or two. That's almost unheard of for us. And if you see it, it was completely flooded. Large swaths of Texas were flooded. And that was, again, after 2 or 3 days of just torrential rains. Think about 40. Then as we begin to think about it, still, I'm not sure that can flood the entire earth. Well, there are more things that happen than just 40 days of rain. And when we get to it, you'll see what it is. For yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance, that means including trees, that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. Trees usually can't breathe underwater. whether they take in carbon dioxide or whether they take in oxygen like animals. No plants taking carbon dioxide. We, animals, taking oxygen. In any case, they can't breathe water, and neither can us. Fish can. That's why I didn't say anything about the fish. 7 days and 7 nights. 7 days. 7 days. And that's all you get. If you thought that you only had 7 days before you were to leave this leave this planet, what would you do? If you had 7 days, what would you do? Think about what Noah had to do, what he had to pack in his life for the life that he had lived before. He had 7 days to put it all into one place. And in a matter of 40 days, everything he knew was to be changed forever. 7 days of this normal life. What would you do? How would you take it? And I do believe that Noah had brothers and sisters. You think about that too. Lamech not only had Noah, he had other sons and daughters, which meant that Noah had brothers and sisters. He had relatives, close relatives, that were going to perish. Uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, great uncles, great nieces, great nephews, great aunts. If you think about it, all of that going on, some of you may not even say, I don't want to leave this place. If I have to die, I die. But you would have destroyed mankind by that thinking, because you had to go in the ark. But so let's not treat this flippantly, but to understand why someone would, in 7 days, pack up everything that they needed to be in an enclosed space for 40 days. After those 40 days, you have no idea how the world's going to look like. Verse number 5. But regardless of what took place, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of how he may have felt about his relatives, that he knew he was going to see no more. And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him. Saints of God, are we ready to do all what the Lord commands us to do? Even if it means you'll never see your family again. You'll never see your world again. Now, most of the time, it's not going to go into that. But if that was the choice, what would you do? How would you navigate that? Would you be in a position that you would say, no, I can't live without him? Or would you do what the Lord commanded you to do? Many people are going to be, we talk about the rapture a lot. We talk about the Lord's coming for his saints, for the church. And people may think that we're being very callous about it, that we're leaving our nephews, we're leaving our family, we're leaving our mothers and fathers, everybody else behind while we go. No, that's not the case at all. We're trying to tell our mothers and fathers, our sisters and brothers, our sons and our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, our aunts and our uncles. We're trying to tell them all about Christ. That you can come with us. You can come with us, which is what Noah tried to preach those 120 years since before he was 500 years old. I believe even before he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But nobody listened. Most likely, they all laughed at him. Thought he was touched in the head. Oh, that's old Noah. Noah's at it again. Oh, man. And what's that big contraption he's making right now? All that racket, building things and cutting stuff up. And why is he making such a big thing? Well, you can come with me. No, I don't. I'd rather not have things to do. The same thing that people are doing right now. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. So you can just imagine what Noah had to go through, and knowing as he and his sons were the only ones in his family, plus their wives, that was going to survive this ordeal. But the Lord made sure he knew. You couldn't fault Noah, because Noah did his job, not only by his words, but by his actions. He was always preparing. He was always building. He was always preaching. And he was always living it. That's what we should be doing, saints. We must be about our Father's business. Doesn't matter how silly it may seem to others. Doesn't matter whether it may seem crazy to those who know you. But if you believe in Jesus like you should believe in him, then you know that you'll sell out to Jesus. Not being a traitor, not being a sellout, but you will bake everything on Jesus Christ. And he is probably the absolute safest, if you could say that, bet that anyone can make. His returns are astronomical, and they are sure. So, as we look at these things, as we understand them, we must be careful, and we must warn. Because it may seem silly to some, but if the Lord says it's real, and it will happen. May God bless you, and may he keep you.